Do you need to know what a mirrorless camera is and how it differs to a DSLR? Well, this video is going to tell you. On this channel, I talk an awful lot about photography and also camera gear and camera bodies. And that is because as photographers, we love nothing more than to talk about the gear that we shoot with and the gear that we very much like to shoot with if we could afford it. But what if you're new to photography and you don't really know what a mirrorless camera is, or maybe you're not new to photography, but mirrorless cameras are still new to you? Well, let me explain what a mirrorless camera is and how it differs to a DSLR. To understand the difference between a mirrorless camera and a DSLR camera, first of all, we need to know what a mirrorless camera is. What does the term mirrorless actually mean? So to be as simplistic as possible, a mirrorless camera is one without a mirror, as the name suggests, but it is one without a reflex mirror, and that is a little mirror you see when you take that cap off at the front of your camera body or DSLR and you see a little mirror. Well, mirrorless cameras is missing that part, the reflex mirror. Instead, light will pass through the lens and straight onto the digital sensor. This then displays the image live, if you like, on the LCD or LED screen on the back of the camera, as well as in the EVF. Now, EVF, in the realm of mirrorless cameras, that phrase has really come to the fore, and all it means is electronic viewfinder. So on a traditional DSLR, you've got your little viewfinder at the top where you are seeing the image that your camera can see through the reflex mirror, bouncing that light up into the viewfinder. Well, with mirrorless cameras, as I say, there is no mirror. That image, or the light, sorry, passes straight through the lens onto the digital sensor, and that is the image that you see. Okay, let's explain that a little better, and so you can fully appreciate what I'm talking about, let's bring a diagram into play and try and explain it that way. Okay, so this is a simplified diagram of a mirrorless camera body. As I said, light comes in from the left side, through the lens and straight into the image sensor. From there, it can be displayed on the LCD screen, on the rear of the camera, or through that EVF, the electronic viewfinder. Now this is pretty cool because it means you're seeing a preview of what the image will look like with the settings that you have applied live. So it's a live shot where you can see the results before you've actually got them out of the camera. This means that you can tweak your settings in the camera and see in real time what difference those changes to the settings are going to have on your image that you're shooting. Now, a DSLR does have a reflex mirror. So again, light comes in the left side through the lens, but rather than going straight to the image sensor like our mirrorless camera does, instead that light bounces off the reflex mirror, travels up through a pentaprism, big word, and then into the viewfinder, the traditional viewfinder, not the electric one. This is how you're able to see what you're looking at when you're holding and looking through your DSLR camera. You then take your shot, review your shot on screen on the reverse of the camera, tweak your settings accordingly until you get the correct image, exposure, whatever that you're looking for, and then you take the shot again to make sure you've got that right. So straight away, one of the differences here is you don't have to take a shot with a mirrorless camera to see how your image is going to actually end up. So let's talk about the benefits of a mirrorless camera. Now, first off, the technology is obviously a lot newer. Mirrorless cameras have actually been around quite a while now, but in terms of the modern day cameras, I'm talking now in summer 2023, things are kind of progressing and advancing by way of technology at such a pace that if you're buying a mirrorless camera that's been released within the last year or two, the technology is likely going to be far ahead than it will be on a DSLR from, say, 4 or 5 years ago. Specific benefits, we've already talked about the electronic viewfinder and the benefits that that can bring in terms of composing your shot and knowing the impact of the settings and what that image will look like before actually hitting the shutter. Also, mirrorless cameras can have both a mechanical and an electric shutter. Now, mechanical is moving parts, that's what a DSLR has. So when you hit the shutter on your DSLR and you hear that clicky noise, they're the mechanical moves, they're mechanical parts inside the camera body moving to kind of create and freeze that image. With the electric shutter, it has no moving parts and it is essentially the sensor being turned on and off again. That is what the process of taking an image with a mirrorless camera is. This allows electric shutters to be capable of shooting crazy numbers of shots per second. So when you're doing continuous bursts of shots and you're using an electric shutter, you can reach some eye-watering levels of shots per second, that FPS that you see advertised against cameras. When the Canon R3 was released about a year or two ago, that advertised, I think initially, something like 30 frames per second on the electric shutter. Bear in mind that like a Canon 1DX Mark II was shooting at 16 frames per second. It's kind of crazy to think that you can be shooting 30 frames per second on a modern mirrorless camera. Since then, with firmware updates, that number has increased still further. It's crazy, but that is one of the real benefits. If you need that kind of quick shutter speed, probably for sports, if we're being honest, when I say quick shutter speed, I mean frames per second in burst mode. If you need that, an electric shutter is going to deliver that to you. Also, mirrorless cameras are generally a little bit more compact, they're lighter, they're smaller, and they're easy to carry around because the technology in them is a lot lighter and there's less parts in it than on a DSLR, or certainly less clunky parts. So what are the disadvantages of using a mirrorless camera? Well, the first one right here in summer 2023 is that the technology, the mirrorless cameras, are still pretty expensive. Certainly when you compare what you can get right now for like DSLR cameras that are albeit a couple of years old. Now that technology I mentioned earlier is obviously a key reason behind this. Also, manufacturers are yet to really fully sort out and resolve the issue of rolling shutter. That normally happens when you're taking a quick burst of photos on mirrorless cameras and elements within the image become a little bit distorted. In summary then, whether you like it or not, mirrorless cameras are the future. Some manufacturers like Canon have now completely stopped developing their DSLR range and are focusing purely on mirrorless cameras. The next big release for them, for example, will be the actual Canon flagship mirrorless camera. That is rumored to be the R1, which is expected out 2024. That will be the successor to the Canon 1DX Mark III, the current flagship model, if you like, as far as professional photographers are concerned. So I hope that's given you a really quick overview of what a mirrorless camera is, how it differs to a DSLR. I'll leave this video here. Please like and subscribe if you have enjoyed this video, and hopefully I'll see you on another video.